Hello there, I'm Guildmaster Dan, and welcome to the Fourth Wall, and a happy Easter to all of my subscribers, both religious and non. So today, we're going to be talking about handling the fuzzy stats. The fuzzy stats are the statistics in every system that are assigned to associate with mental capability and social capability. In Dungeons & Dragons terms, they're the intelligence, wisdom, and charisma stats. These are the stats that I call fuzzy because they're not quite so concrete. They're not like a strength stat where when you check that, it's just to see if whether you were strong enough to lift that heavy thing, or your dexterity stat to see if you had the nimbleness of your fingers to pick that man's pocket, or even the constitution stat to see if you had the fortitude to not grunt when that man punched you in the stomach. Those stats are all fairly concrete. They're representing your physical capabilities. Now, when you're dealing with the stats that are your mental and your social capabilities, it gets a little bit fuzzier because that inherently has to do with how your character interacts with others. It's not how their own body works. It's how they interact with the world around them. And this is how, in a lot of systems, these statistics end up being the most abused out of all of the stats that make up a character. Some GMs will let players roll intelligence to skip puzzles because their character's supposed to be that smart. Other GMs will even use social stats to allow the character to make an eloquent or inspiring speech. Other GMs might even use the stats as a justification to take control of that player's character, whether to make it fit character or just to prevent them from making a dumb mistake that the GM knows that player is going to make. Some players, on the flip side of it, will even argue that a mistake that they just made never should have happened because their character is smart enough to know not to do that. Well, it doesn't work that way at all. If you take nothing else away from what I'm going to talk about for the next 5-10 minutes, remember this. This is my one piece of advice I want you to remember above everything else in this video. Stats should never replace roleplay or trump player decisions. One more time. Stats should never replace roleplay or trump player decisions. You know what? A third time for good measure. Stats should never replace roleplay or trump character decisions. These are role-playing games. The entire point of these games is about the players acting out their characters. It's not about them getting the best stats, or it's not about their stats. The stats do not make the character. How your players role-play their character makes the character. In some of these cases, look at it this way. Stats don't exist to describe a character, despite what a lot of people might think. No. Stats exist to resolve chances. They are there to essentially reinforce how the world might interpret that character. Let me tell you a story. I once had a game, a superheroes game, where one of the characters had a high enough stat that it legitimately stated in the book that character with this high enough intelligence stat is among the most intelligent people in the entire world. They are extremely intelligent, and that fit, because he was playing a psychic character. You know, he had telepathy, he had telekinesis to help him fly and everything. Well, it came to a situation where he and his superhero team had to go to a place in the ocean. Now, they're on a boat, and they need to find this place. They were given a set of coordinates, but everybody on the team starts arguing about how they want to approach it. This psychic character gets fed up with the rest of the party complaining and bickering, and then he decides, screw it, I'm just going to go there myself. They'll catch up. That's fine. He makes that decision. The way he decides to handle that is he turns to me and says, do we know the coordinates? I'm like, yes, you do. You were just giving them a little bit ago. All right, I fly off. Okay. That character flew off into the ocean. And, you know, I let the others continue to bicker, and he's flying off, and after a couple of minutes, I come back to him, and I say, okay, make me a perception check. Which he did, and the hero looks around and realizes that the boat's no longer in sight, and he has no idea where he is. He is just in the sky, out above the ocean. And then the player looks at me with dread in his eyes and says, why don't I know where I'm going? Well, no, you know the coordinates, and you said you fly off, which is what you did. You flew off. But I wouldn't have made that mistake. I'm smart enough not to make that mistake. Well, apparently not. Because you made that decision. You flew off. You told me I fly off in that direction. It is not my job to stop you because your character is smarter than you. Just because your character might think that might be a dumb idea doesn't mean that you didn't make that decision. The player is in control of the character. The character is not in control of the player. If it was, this would be a much creepier game. The point being here, the player has control. The character doesn't. The world does not have control over that character. You should never take control of a player's character, whether it's to make it fit the character or whether it's just to keep them from making a stupid mistake. Players will make mistakes and they'll learn from them, or they won't, and they'll go through tons of characters. But the point being, they'll make mistakes. They're the ones in charge. If you take control of that character, whether it's in their benefit or not, you are encroaching on their authority over that character. You as the game master control the entire world. The player only gets their character. And they have complete control over that character. They have so much control over that character that they can make a stupid decision despite the fact that that character might not want to do that. If you take control, you are taking something away from that player, whether it's to their benefit or not. And players, you should remember this as well. If a game master is taking control of your character, whether it's to your benefit or not, they are taking something away from you. They are taking. I don't mean to. I don't mean to bring this towards to get political or anything. But a good analogy to this is the whole argument over security versus safety thing. As a player, you have your privacy. In this case, your control. When the game master comes in and takes away your control to help you, it's the same thing as a government coming in and taking away your privacy to give you safety. They are inherently taking something away from you. You should not, that is a boundary that should not be crossed. And both sides of that should realize that. Game masters do not do that. Players realize that game masters should not do that. That's crossing a boundary that should not be crossed. As for that pretty much covers mental stats. I mean, as far as making mistakes goes. Going back to the puzzle thing that I mentioned before, yeah, it's true. Players can run into a puzzle that you throw at them, and they're not getting it, to pound their head against the wall, and they're just not getting it. That happens. That's kind of inherent to puzzles in role-playing games. When you don't have a puzzle physically in front of you, it can be difficult to do the thinking, and admittedly, a player might just not get it. But a character, even though they're super intelligent, that character, they might argue that that character's super smart and might be able to get it. Yes, but you should never let a roll just allow you to skip that part. The entire reason you have puzzles is the fun of figuring them out. If you just skip it, then there is no point to have that puzzle in the first place. No, don't do that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use that stat to help you in that situation. Yes, GMs can have players roll intelligence while they're trying to figure out a puzzle. But you're not going to use it to skip it, to just solve it. I'm like, oh, I experienced this as a child. I know the answer. Oh, door's open. No. We'll talk more about puzzles on another day. But point being, what you can do is you can have them roll their intelligence or their equivalent intelligence stat in order to get a clue from it. And the clue in the sense that, oh, it appears that this is associated with this. If I move this, it moves this. They can notice things, but they can get small clues that, they might notice it. And when you're solving a puzzle, it's something that you might not consciously think of, but subconsciously you realize, and that's how you continue playing and messing around with it. You can give them those things. You can give them little clues and stuff to help them along, and that represents their character's intelligent thought. That works fine, but you should never let them just skip it. Moving on to social stats, it kind of works the same way. You should never let a roll just skip the role play of that. The social stats, especially, that's about role playing. Just because you aren't necessarily the most versed in old-timey language or in bartering or anything like that, and your character might be, that doesn't mean that exempts you from role-playing. No, the entire point of the game is for you to role-play your character and have a go at it. Pretty much, for Game Masters, any time your player's character gets into a social situation with an NPC that they need to socialize with them, whether that be haggling, giving speeches, trying to seduce someone important, or lying, you should depending upon the situation, but you should make your character or your player role play that out. Make them have to come up with their lie. Have them role play out how they seduce that noble. Make them haggle. Just because they might not be good at it and their character might be, doesn't mean that they get to skip out on that role-playing experience. That's the entire point of the game. If you take away the role-playing out of a role-playing game, you have a video game or a board game, which are both fine. But for a role-playing game, it's about role-playing. So have them role-play that out. But Dan, if they're not so good at it and their character is good at it, then what am I supposed to do? I mean, what's the stat for? It's real simple. If a player role plays it out and they do well enough or bad enough, you don't ever need to make a check. If they can make an eloquent speech on the fly, then yeah, they inspire that group of people. Or, if they come up with the worst lie you've ever heard of as to what they're doing in the bank in the middle of the night, then they get arrested or shot, depending. Point being, if the player can do well enough on the fly or just does terrible at it, you don't even need a roll. You already know what the outcome should be. There's no reason for them to roll. The reason why that stat is there is to resolve when there's chance. When they make a lie that's questionable. When they use a line on that noble woman and it's kind of schmaltzy. If the NPC has to think about it, there needs to be a roll. And that'll determine which side that NPC falls on, whether they go in the positive or they go in the negative. It's only there to resolve a chance. If they're good enough or bad enough, there's no need for a roll. Once again, the thing you need to take away is that even though these stats can be kind of fuzzy and kind of questionable about when you should use them, take away that one rule I said earlier. The stats are there. They're there only to reinforce how the world might see that character, to resolve chances. Stats should never replace role-playing or trump a player's decision. Never take away the reins, never let them replace what the game is about. But there's more to this topic than maybe I had time to talk about. It is Easter after all, and I was trying to hurry. But maybe there was something I didn't bring up, or there was something that you disagreed with. Please, by all means, leave a comment below and like, share, and subscribe so we can keep the conversation going. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. So, honey, there's this cute new girl down at the coffee shop. I mean, she's really cute. I was just thinking maybe... Oh. Ow.
That's what you asked me to do.
That hurt.